2. Only once in the past 5 years had Frost set foot into the hallway. Now, as she was about to open the door, she found herself paralyzed by fear. Her breathing increased, her hands and lips trembled, and her heart pounded out a beat that wouldn't slow for hours. She couldn't speak. She couldn't even turn the knob. Finally, Bunt broke the disabling silence. "I detect nothing out in the hall. It is safe." At the sound of his voice, Frost let out a long breath, opened the door, and stepped outside. Bunt joined her, slowly glancing up and down the dilapidated hall. "My actions in these coming moments will make a lot of noise. They may bring trouble. Prepare yourself." Frost gripped one of Bunt's largest knives, practically a machete, and held it before her defensively, the blade dancing fearfully in her hand. She glanced down the hall to her right at an open door, waiting for something to come running out. It took her a moment before she realized it was the apartment her father once used as his makeshift office. She never knew exactly what he did before the days of Bedlam. All he ever said was that he was an artist of sorts, and left it at that. In the early years before he was trapped inside Bunt, he was always locked away in there instead. Back then, in her perpetually feverish state, Frost's mother was always yelling at him, telling him to let it go, that he was losing sight of what was important. Whatever he was trying to accomplish, however, never amounted to anything, not that Frost could remember. And now, looking in, she could see why. The place was trashed. There were tools sticking out of the walls, garbage strewn about, papers littering the floor, tables and desks and dressers toppled over and spilling their contents as if a bomb had exploded, tearing the room apart like the rest of the city. It all must have been too much for him, being unable to rebuild the past. Bunt, meanwhile, approached the hall elevator. He measured it with his eyes and then with his hands. Apparently satisfied with the information he gathered in these brief seconds, he began to rip the door free. Indeed, the noise was loud. Frost shivered slightly, as she imagined the sounds could be heard from miles away. Who knew what it would draw? As usual, the robot's strength was impressive. The metal door must have been tremendously heavy, but in virtually no time at all, Bunt had torn it loose from the track and raised it high over his head as if to throw it through the weakened walls. But instead, he gently set the door down in the floor and burned a hole through it somewhere near the top. Then he returned to the open elevator shaft, reached in for one of the 12 supporting cables, and ripped it from the ceiling and then from the elevator itself. It was quite long, so he burned off a shorter length. He slipped one end through the hole he created in the door and promptly tied a rather imposing knot. With the cable over his shoulder, he pulled the door down the length of the hall and back to the apartment door. "This will do," he said. Dropping the cable, he walked back into the apartment and bent down in front of Rome's. When he tried to lift him, the animal snapped, crying out in pain. "You will have to help me," Bunt said to Frost. Frost fell to all fours, crawled over, and began to stroke Rome's head. She placed her mouth inches from the brute's ears. "I need you to trust Bunt like you do me. I know you're in a lot of pain. I know it hurts and you're scared. I am too. But we're going to help you, okay? We're going to take you somewhere. A place better than this. A place where there is medicine and miracles. I'll get you there. I promise I will." Bunt tried to lift him again, and again Rome snapped. Even as solid as the robot was, and as dull as Rome's teeth had become, Frost knew there would still be plenty of damage if the brute were to lock on. And if his bite found her flesh instead of the metal of a robot, whatever appendage was the unlucky recipient would be torn off like the elevator door. "Get behind me," Frost told Bunt. "Lift him, but with me between the two of you." "He will still snap. He is an animal, Frost. He will take your life without thinking twice." "This is an order, Bunt. You have to trust me, just as Rome's has to, just as I trust him." Bunt did as he was told. As he bent down, Frost wondered what would happen if Rome's lunged at her. She didn't even fear the pain. She feared that, in the brief moments before she died, her heart just might break. With Frost standing between brute and robot, Bunt lifted the animal awkwardly. Rome's head did indeed snap, his mouth opened wide, teeth bared, saliva dripping. With great speed and a growl, he brought his jaws thrusting forward right toward Frost.